The blunderbuss is not a sniper weapon. Stop using the blunderbuss to snipe. Hey, you beautiful buccaneers, Falcore here. So I hope you've all been enjoying the new update. I most certainly have. Well, I mean, I'm sure the Ashen Lord fight is fun. I mean, it looks fun when I watch other people doing it, right before I take the loot from them. But pirate. So this new update brings the much anticipated Ashen Lords to the game, and with it a whole new load of questions surrounding what they are and how they got here. First of all, I want you all to cast your minds back to when we first started to find these horrible things. Dark Relics. Dark Relics were items that were taken from the Order of Souls by a group of skeletons. Nobody knows which group, but what we do know is the Masked Stranger, aka Wanda, got her hands on them, and then used Stitcher Jim to unlock their powers. Their purpose was to try and resurrect Flameheart. The Masked Stranger already knew that Flameheart was resting within the remains of his own body, but she needed a way to bring him back. And since Greymarrow was one of the few people in the Sea of Thieves who knew of this binding magic, Stitcher Jim and the Masked Stranger tried to bring him back from Purgatory. However, things did not go to plan. Instead of pulling Greymarrow from the void, they pulled forth a kind of memory of Greymarrow. Since Greymarrow is already dead, he cannot go to the Sea of the Damned. So what they brought forth was a sort of shadow thing, which doesn't really do much apart from get, slapped daily by, you guys. So, They pulled a chunk of the Sea of the Damned through in a sort of astral explosion, and the Fort of the Damned was born. Since Greymarrow wanted nothing to do with them, and his astral form cared only about protecting his new lair, Stitcher Jim and the Masked Stranger went about a new plan, to bring back the only other professor of this soul-binding magic, Pendragon, and on this occasion, it worked. He was fooled by the Masked Stranger and Stitcher Jim and, well, us, to bring back Flameheart. So why am I telling you this? The reason is because the Tomes of Fire, Curses, Resurrection, etc. that we have all been painfully collecting have nothing to do with Flameheart. Although that seems the most obvious because hey, he's made from fire and he's resurrected, the tomes have in fact always been about the Ashen Lord's resurrection and not Flameheart. This update brings 4 Ashen Lords into the mix, but the most important of the 4 is Old Horatio. A few people made the connection, but for those who did not, Old Horatio was the Ashen Lord seen in the Tall Tale Seabound Soul. He was only known as the Commander, and could be seen escorting Flameheart's corpse to its crypt. His last act was to part the shroud and hide the Ashen Dragon in the oceans beyond, but this power also turned him to dust. Now, in the title screen of the new update, we see a smoking urn. This urn was also drawn by the Masked Stranger, and surrounding it are other urns that we are yet to see. This smoking urn can also be found on top of a pile of skulls during the strange ceremony the skeletons are doing before the Ashen Lord spawns. This urn seems to be the focal point for this huge plume of smoke, as if essence is being drawn into it. Now, one of the lines said by Red Ruth upon summoning gives a vital clue to what this is all about. Upon resurrection, she says, "Finally! I was getting bored down there." Now, at first I thought this might be a reference toward the Sea of the Damned, but then it got me thinking. These other urns that you see in the picture the Masked Stranger has drawn, notice anything telling about them? There is 4 urns, 4 Ashen Lords, and 4 urns. Now, one thing that is obvious about these Ashen Lords is the fact that they have a form of glowing heart, which is not typical of your regular skeleton. These Ashen Hearts, I believe, are the essence of their overwhelming power. When the commander of the Ashen Dragon fulfilled his duty, his last act was to part the shroud and hide the Ashen Dragon beyond. But this process turned him into dust. But maybe not all of him. Maybe there was something left behind. Could these urns in these pictures be holding these Ashen hearts? Furthermore, the commander's power to actually part the shroud shows that Ashen Lords have a connection with the shroud itself. When his body turned to dust, was that basically his soul or essence becoming one with the shroud? Now let's take a look at the ritual the skeletons are performing. First, we see a huge plume of smoke being centered toward an urn lying on top of a bed of skulls and bones. Also note the skeleton reading from one of the tomes we have collected. It is my belief that these other urns, drawn by the masked stranger, are either within these bones or buried beneath them. Hence why Red Ruth says, "Finally, I was getting bored down there." So we have an Ashen heart, the Ashen Lord's power, and a bed of bones to form a new body for the Ashen Lord, a ritual and a skeleton reading from a tome. But one final thing is needed: the Ashen Lord's essence. This huge cloud of smoke isn't just an eye-pleasing aesthetic on the horizon. It's my belief that this is the essence of the Ashen Lord being siphoned from the shroud itself to complete the ritual. And if that is the case, it would mean that the shroud is not a mere natural disaster or a simple plume of smoke. It could be a form of limbo, an eternal life for those unable to visit the Sea of the Damned. The shroud is people. Okay, that last bit was a bit cheesy, but, you know, gotta love it.